Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, December 13th, 2023, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan on the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week, try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you always know we do strive to be a news podcast, which means we do get our sources from the most reputable places with award-winning journalism and sites and sources to back up everything that we say. We do not do sensationalized news like Fox News, News Media, The Blaze, whatever extreme left or extreme right sites or articles or publications that people go to. At the same time, guys, we do try to watch our language, but sometimes words do fly at the same time. There may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, how do we start this? Well, unfortunately, we do have to start this on some somber news, as we do have to celebrate, as this was reported as of yesterday. A great actor in his own right, Andre Braugher, has passed away.
Drama, he could do it all. Actor Andre Braugher has died following a short illness. Chloe Melas now in his life and Emmy-winning career.
You have disappointed all three of us.
For 8 seasons, Andre Braugher played beloved police captain Raymond Holt on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, drawing laughs with his deadpan delivery.
No, from now on, call me Velvet Thunder.
But Braugher was initially known for his dramatic work on screen, with his first big break in the 1989 Civil War drama Glory, alongside Denzel Washington.
Hey, let me tell you. Shut up, Trip. You get up off me, Snowflake.
And later as Detective Frank Pembleton for 6 seasons on the 90s police drama Homicide: Life on the Street.
Don't lie to me again. This is what you did.
A performance that won him an Emmy in 1998.
This is for all the people in Baltimore. This is a town that I love. We have finally made it.
But it was delving into comedy years later that he says challenged him in new ways.
I just felt I needed to grow as an artist. I needed to do something different and challenge myself.
Braugher's co-stars remembering him. Terry Crews writing, "You showed me what a life well lived looks like." Braugher was 61 years old and leaves behind his wife of over 30 years, actress Amy Brabson, and 3 sons. In a 2020 Variety interview, he said that fatherhood was his most important role. "I wanted to be there through the course of their life because I know how important fathers are." Chloe Melas.
And definitely rest in power, sir, because I remember him, like I said, as they said, his first impression I've seen of Andre Braugher was definitely in Glory, just because Glory was a staple in most schools. If you got to watch it, I'm surprised we got to watch it in the South without CRT being mentioned. But between him, Homicide: Life on the Street, and of course Brooklyn Nine-Nine, as far as various other roles this man has been in, he will definitely be missed. It's already, why at the end of 2023 do we always, death has to get somebody? That's what I'm like. I'm just rambling. Death could really take a break right now, because my God. But again, sir, rest in power. So let's go to another happier segment. Abortion. Yeah, that's happy, I guess. The reason why I'm bringing this up, because this is something that female voters, or if you never voted for, potential voters, or you're actually able to, or you're eligible to vote, you new voters, especially of the women genre. You guys, like I said before, the earlier part of this year, you guys were lambasted because Roe versus Wade was basically shot down by the Supreme Court, by an overly conservative Supreme Court. This led to a lot of states triggering already anti-abortion laws in effect that they had in place once the official federal ruling was actually made. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why am I talking about this? Well, because I said since they struck that down, that what's going to wind up happening is for women, your health care is going to be more compromised, more complicated, and it's going to cost you more time and money in the long run than it would a man. Simply put, because you should have complete autonomy over your own body without a group of old white men telling you what you can or cannot do. That being said, a lot of states always sit there and say, a lot of these states who are pro-life have turned around and sit there and said, but no, we want to protect the sanctity of life, and only if the mother's life is in danger should abortion be considered. Or unless you were messing around with a Republican representative or senator, then all of a sudden it's God's will. Take it how you will. But the reason why I bring that up is because that was the big thing everybody harped on. That if the child was in danger, if the mother's life was in danger, then that's the only way abortions could happen. Well, 2 cases. Let's start with the first one. A woman in Kentucky is basically having a lawsuit against the state of Kentucky. Why? Because she basically is pregnant and wanted to abort. Of course, Kentucky does have one of those abortion laws in effect that doesn't allow you to abort past 10 weeks because apparently some old white men believe that a woman can detect when she's pregnant at the moment of conception, which is bullshit. But this woman at first was wanting to abort, and then unfortunately she was also adding to the case that the embryo has no cardiac activity, which basically means the fetus does not have a heartbeat, which means that, well, because of that, the baby would arrive stillborn if they tried. That being said, the woman decided to take it upon herself. The would-have-been mother decided to take it upon herself and say, okay, this falls within the jurisdictions of me having an abortion because this dead fetus inside of me, if it's not removed, will cause complications. Kentucky at the time said pretty much, no, this doesn't fall under those rulings. Hence why this individual, who is labeled as Jane Doe, is now suing the state of Kentucky for an abortion. Now, this is part of what I'm talking about, guys. This is why I sit there and said the whole entire time when they decide to move the goalposts, when they say, oh, well, you can have an abortion if it endangers your life. Okay, it endangers my life. The fetus has no cardiac activity. The fetus is dead, which means that if not removed, it will harm my life. I fall under your guidelines. And then they turn around and say, no. Even though current Kentucky AG and Mitch McConnell kiss-ass, Daniel Cameron, who is actually a part of that suit, saying that they are reviewing the complaint. Keep in mind, this was literally what I talked about so many months ago, that for the simple fact of the matter, when they decided to kill Roe versus Wade, when the states decided to enter in these trigger abortion laws, this was going to make healthcare harder for women. And that's just one case. There's another case right now, which again, I am shocked and amazed because this woman had to leave Texas. And again, completely different situation. A woman in Texas was pregnant. Again, there was complications with the birth, fell under Texas guidelines for abortions. And here's the thing, and this is such a crazy story. The AG, Ken Paxton, if you guys remember for long ago who I brought this up, the man who got impeached by his own party, the man who bribed, who swindled, took illegal funds, did favors, all of that jazz. And it's part of the Republican Party in Texas. His own party was ready to turn him in, but everybody else kept him in power. This same man saw this woman about to have an abortion and filed an injunction to have the abortion halted, which eventually went to the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court for Texas, which again, overly conservative, turned around and sat there and said that no, this abortion cannot happen, even though it is under their guidelines. So what was the woman left to do?
Timeline between that, right, and when the baby could be considered viable outside the womb, and then that even limits your options even more if you want to get an abortion if your state doesn't allow that. Of course, Texas is one of the most strict on the books, and you have Ken Paxton, who is a lawyer, not a medical doctor, we should emphasize. He is arguing that this woman's situation does not fit the definition of life-threatening of Texas law, and that her future fertility is not impacted anymore from this pregnancy with any other pregnancy. I mean, basically he's saying just because this fetus has a life-threatening condition, that doesn't impact her future fertility more than any other pregnancy, even if it was normal. What do you say to that?
So just as I can't weigh in on the nuances of the law, similarly, it's not a lawyer's place to weigh in on the nuances of medicine. If this woman's doctor is saying that carrying this likely pregnancy to term is threatening her future health, we need to take her doctor's word. Moreover, as an emergency physician, what worries me even more is all of the folks that are coming into emergency departments across the state of Texas and in other states with similar laws who don't have the time to wait, who are literally facing life-threatening conditions. The physicians caring for them are being forced to go through this same legal rigmarole in order to care for the patients in front of them who are facing incredibly time-sensitive, life-threatening conditions. Again, not to say that Kate's case is not time-sensitive. Each week that passes puts her and the rest of her family more at risk. And if I can say one more thing here, it's that I get deeply worried about what would happen to the United States if folks had to travel outside of the US in order to get this life-saving health care because of.
And she's 100% right. She's 100% right. That woman that I just described in Texas had to flee. And again, they don't know the whereabouts of this woman, and I don't blame her. Think about that for a second. The fact that you followed exactly the guidelines and an individual who is not a medical doctor, who is a politician, a corrupt one at that, is saying that your case doesn't fall under Texas guidelines. So what does a woman, what can a woman do? She has to go to a state where it's allowed. She has to go to a state where abortion is legal. And for a lot of women, they don't have that luxury. A lot of women don't have the luxury of getting on a plane or driving a car or going to another state at this moment. And I say state because who knows what will happen. But the fact that you have to go outside of your state to another state to get an abortion screams volumes. Because, like I said, not a lot of women can do that. And again, if you're in a situation like the doctor said, every day is a ticking time bomb. And this is why I keep saying this all the time, that on this show, we are pro-choice. It should be pro-choice in all states. It should be, because a lot of you pro-lifers, you people kill me because you're not pro-life, you're pro-birth is what you are. But again, it always kills me that these people want to push their opinions on women and say they're doing the right thing. Just because you may believe in something does not give you the moral high ground to take over someone else's life. A woman should be allowed to make the choices of her own body without consequence, incursion, or interruption from anybody. Because why? I'm not a woman. I'm not a woman. I can't get pregnant. So I have no basis whatsoever to tell a woman what she can and can't do with her own body. I can't. I shouldn't. And as men, we shouldn't. But you have those out there, whether of the religious variety or just feel like every child needs a voice. And honestly, I say this all the time. For all those out there, if you're still watching this, which I still find amazing if you are, but all those out there, when I turn around and point out that the fact of, if you're pro-life, why aren't you at adoptions agencies? Why aren't you going to adoption agencies and telling them to lighten up on same-sex parents? Why don't you tell them to lighten up? Because most adoption agencies are religious-based. And let's be honest, for religions that accept everybody except same-sex couples, because they believe that somehow it will turn the child, which, again, there's nothing out there. There's not a scientific basis that says otherwise. But at the same time, women are now going to extreme lengths if they can. And then worst case scenario, some women are told that you have to carry a child. Imagine the fact that you are if you're not a woman, imagine the fact that you see horses out there that are studs and they're mares. And studs basically do what they're supposed to do. Get the mares pregnant, keep the line going. But as a mare, you don't have a choice. As a mare, you're only designed to basically breed offspring repeatedly and against your will. That's what we have just said to all the women in America that, yeah, you're a person, but you're also a broodmare. You are there to help us conceive and bear children and damn your health. And that's what we're telling you. This is what I keep on saying to all those potential voters out there, to all those potential women voters out there. Keep in mind, you guys right now should be the most, next to second pissed off group out there. You should be, because your rights are compromised. And that's just the beginning. Like I said, like Blaze said, imagine the fact that she's going across states. What if it was countries next? Could you imagine trying to go to Canada or Mexico or farther out just to get an abortion? Or do we go back to those days where women went to more extreme methods to basically, let's be honest, the hangers are there for a reason, just because, guys, again, those were dangerous times for women to try to do things that were not done in clean environments and by professionals. There is a reason why abortion should be legalized. And if you don't like it, don't get pregnant. And if you're not a woman, don't help somebody get pregnant if you don't like abortions. Keep to yourself. But it is crazy that we're seeing the lengths that people will go to keep women from just exercising their rights. A woman's body is her choice. Plain and simple. You can argue 6 ways up from Sunday. You can throw your Bible at it. But the truth of the matter is, a woman's body is her own choice. And that's how it should be. But move right along, guys. I wanted to cover this story because, again, I keep talking about the wheels of justice. I know from an old Richard Pryor joke, black people go downtown looking for justice, and that's when you find just us. Well, again, this is what worries me about our legal system. Our legal system is not perfect by any means whatsoever. The rules are not written for us. This is also true. But imagine you being in prison, and we've heard this song multiple times on this podcast. We have covered stories of individuals who have been falsely accused years later to find out that they've been vindicated. Time taken away from them. And, retribution should have been 4 or 5 times over. But again, we have another story of a man who was convicted at 16, and 19 years later, they finally got it right.
County Attorney's Office bears responsibility for taking almost 20 years away from Marvin Hayes and his family. We have deeply devoted professionals in this office who are committed to doing the right thing every day. And doing the right thing sometimes means we must seek to undo the harms of the past and not defend them. And that is what we have tried to do today.
And I thought this was really interesting in her press release. You lost the opportunity to graduate from high school, to have a prom, to have relationships, to attend a wedding and funerals, and be with your family for the holidays. For that, I am so deeply sorry. I know sorry does not take it back, Marvin, but I just wonder what those words felt like.
It means so much to me for somebody with that much power to now recognize that I'm innocent and correct it and just help me move forward with my life, because it's been a long journey. So to hear them words from somebody to acknowledge that I'm actually innocent and help me get my life back, I can't even explain what it means to me.
Marvin, what was your first night home like? What do you have planned for the weeks, months, years ahead?
I mean, I went to a nice dinner with my lawyer. We enjoyed each other and was so appreciative of them. They helped save my life. So, and just, correct my narrative. And I'm just I was so happy about that. But I'm looking forward to get a job and just get my life on.
So I get it. Okay. Let me be honest. Okay. I'll be honest. I understand that man. Yes, he's grateful. Yes, he's happy to be out of prison. Yes, he's ready to get on with the rest of his life. I commend that man for having that level of focus. I really, truly do. But this is also the same man who was wrongfully convicted of murder, murdering a man in a flower shop in Minnesota. Wrongfully, because for the simple fact of the matter is the witnesses got it wrong. The prosecution moved forward, still got a jury to convict him. only to find out that the evidence was lacking and the witness testimony was recanted. Here's my problem with this. The state can admit that they got the conviction wrong. What happens next? Because here's my thing. You are in a court of law. Your job is to basically, if the person is guilty, you have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt in a court full of his peers that this man did this crime and the jury has to convict him, right? That is your job as a state prosecutor. That is your job as being in state to prove that the defendant did what he did. That was the whole shebang about it. Here's the problem. What happens when they get it wrong? Oh, well, we're dedicated to ensuring that we're seeking justice, but sometimes we get it wrong. Here's the thing. Just like law enforcement, you can't get it wrong. You can't have a bad day. You can't have an oops moment. You can't sit there and say, well, he was the right guy at the time. Because that tells me that every case that state has worked needs to be looked into. Now, I understand this may be 1 in a million, and if so, so be it. But due diligence needs to be taken. And if I know that if I was a person that got tried by the same state of the same court, you don't think that those people are not trying to have their cases relooked at again? I mean, like I said before, who knows how many people are incarcerated right now who are actually innocent? And on top of that, what happens with those what happens to the prosecutor that prosecute the case? Are they given a record? Are they looked into? Is their license to practice law taken away from them? What happens? Because that's the thing that I don't understand. That how is it that we can make mistakes in life and our mistakes may harm others, we do time. But a state prosecutor makes a mistake, oops, I'm sorry, we'll do better next time. Slap nothing. And on top of that, that man lost nearly 20 years of his life. Time is something you don't get back, folks. I'm going to be honest with you. Time is something you simply don't get back. Now, usually in these cases, they do give retribution as far as compensation, but how do you put a price tag on 20 years of your life that you'll never get back? What's the price tag on that? And let me know in the comments what you guys think. What is the price tag of 20 years of your life taken away from you for something you didn't do, but you still did the time for it? Because it's going to be a high number. But I'm looking more along the sides of what happens next with the same prosecution. Are they still out there trying people? Because, like I said before, you can't have an off day. You can't have a bad day as a state prosecutor. Same way like law enforcement. You cannot have a bad day in law enforcement, because if you do, well, we know what happens because we got too many cases that show exactly that. But I digress. What do you guys say? It's commendable. He didn't seem too spiteful. Don't know if I would have felt the same. Like I said, that man's candor. I mean, it's grateful. Like I said, I've never been in prison. But I can only imagine if you've been in prison for so long and you're finally out, probably the first thing you're feeling is freaking grateful. Can't knock the man for that. But I also know for the simple fact of the matter is, guys, something has to change. It really does, because there is no way on God's green earth that we can just let these same prosecutors that made this mistake still go out there and still run cases. There has to be some type of recourse or accountability than just saying, oops, sorry. There has to be. But move right along, guys. The consumer price indexes came out and they're trying to make it seem good. They really trying. I cannot make this up.
With the release of the Consumer Price Index report, and it comes just a day ahead of the Federal Reserve's last policy decision of the year.
And both investors and consumers are waiting on that last decision to hear if interest rates will change enough to relieve prices on mortgages. Here to break it all down with us is ABC News business reporter Alexis Christoforous.
Always good to see you.
So happy to see you. Okay, so the number is out. Yeah. It's 3.1%.
Right.
Read the tea leaves for us. What does 3.1% mean for us?
I'm going to start with the good news. Inflation is cooling down. The bad news is it's happening really slowly. In fact, a lot of people would say painfully slowly. The one area we're seeing it right away is gas prices. They're down about 6% compared to this time last year. In fact, half of the gas stations in the country now selling gas for under $3 a gallon. So that's a big help. But it's still stubbornly high in other areas of the economy, like food. You see there milk, fruits, and vegetables costing more. Little relief on the poultry, fish, and eggs, but rent, a big part of everybody's budget, up nearly 0.5% year over year. So if you take a step back, big picture, inflation was 9.1% in June of last year. Remember that? The Fed raised interest rates 11 times to get it down. It's clearly working, but they say that last mile is the hardest. The Fed wants inflation at 2%. It seems to be hanging out at 3%.
That's why they call it the last mile of the way there. Now, the Fed's last policy announcement is tomorrow based on this report right here. Do we think interest rates will finally come down?
I like to call this a Goldilocks situation for the Fed because inflation is slowing. We're not falling into a recession. The job market is strong, not red hot like it was last year, but solid. Consumer spending has pulled back a little bit, but it's hanging on. So it gives the Fed some breathing room. They're expected to leave interest rates unchanged for the third straight time next month. And some are even saying we could see an interest rate cut by the spring of next year.
Oh, that sounds like possibly good news for people. Let's talk mortgage rates, because that's one of those places where you're really watching those interest rates. They've been so high, it's really prevented a lot of people from buying and selling homes. Do you think it's going to get any easier for people?
So I'm going to do something I normally don't do, which is give you more good news because mortgage rates for the sixth week in a row are actually down. So mortgage rates for the 30-year fixed loan, closer to 7% now. They were more than 8% in October. So they're trending lower. Bad news, of course, is that inventory remains low, prices remain high. And as we were talking about earlier, it's tougher to get a loan for a lot of folks because banks are so stingy with who they're lending money to. You have to have a really stellar credit report to get the best rate out there. But if the Fed continues to stay pat or cut rates next year, we could see those mortgage rates continue to come down.
All right, holiday shopping season is here. And with this new report right here, how can we make the best decisions?
It's financial stress. So many people are under financial stress right now. And the thing you need to do is set a budget. I know it sounds easy, hard to do. Lots of folks don't do it. Make a budget, then stick to it. That's the hard part. Set expectations. Talk to family and friends if you feel comfortable about it and say, look, I can't do what I normally would do this year. Things just aren't where I need them to be. Maybe instead of buying for every single person in the family, you do a Secret Santa this year, or you just buy for the kids.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Osman, for letting me know I'm muted. I appreciate that. So just to recap really quick what I just said, because I just found out I was muted. So the fact of the matter, guys, yes, price index, yeah, it's somewhat good. I mean, yeah, gas has gone down, not as much as we want to. Food prices are still up. Mortgages are still high. Mortgages are still impossible to get. Car loans with good rates are impossible to get. The problem is just that when you're trying to sit there and explain that, oh, well, I mean, everything looks good, but not as much as you think. The reason being, and I'm going to keep pointing this out, guys, is always comes down to pay. It always comes down to pay. For example, let me just go this one right here. This right now is state minimum wages. Now, keep in mind when I keep on saying, guys, that the the federal minimum wage is still $7.25. Yes, I know. 2023 about to go into 2024 in a matter of weeks. And our federal minimum wage is still $7.25. Now, for a lot of states like Washington, California, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Maine, Connecticut, and DC, their wages start at $15 an hour and up. Now, is that still poverty wages? Absolutely. You won't be able to get anything on $15 and up an hour. The other states that you see, I like to call them I guess you can call them the teal green states. Those are still $7.25 to $14.99 an hour. Again, minimum wage. Still poverty wages. Here's the crazy part. The lime green, which is basically this one, right? This color right here. I guess you call it lime green, Phillip green, whatever you want to call it. That one right there is the states that still have $7.25 as a minimum wage. Even my home state of Tennessee falls right under that banner. Now you got to think about that. These are minimum wages. Minimum wages at one point, and I got to stress this very heavily, minimum wages at one point was seen as the least you can make, but still be able to sustain yourself. In this day and age, $7.25 doesn't sustain anyone. $14 an hour doesn't sustain anyone. Even $15 an hour doesn't sustain anyone. The truth be told, if our federal minimum wage matched our rate of production and income in the United States, the minimum wage right now would actually be closer to $27 to $30 an hour, which I know a lot of people are going, wait, $27, $30 an hour? Yes. Well, why won't they do that? Well, I'll tell you why they won't do that. If they did make the minimum wage $27 to $30 an hour, that means that every other job out there would have to raise their rates. Something that a lot of companies won't do. You see McDonald's be advertising $15 an hour, $17 for management. Go to Walmart, $15 an hour, 16 and something for customer service, or 17 for cashier. Imagine those places if the minimum wage was at least $27 an hour. At least. Let's just go to the bottom line. Let's just say minimum wage was $27 an hour. That means every one of those jobs that were under that mark have to be raised. And a lot of companies will sit there and say, oh, well, we can't afford that. Yes, you can, because you had record profits. Walmart in a pandemic session has had record profits because they pay their employees so badly that they have to get on government assistance. That same government assistance gets cycled right back into Walmart. Walmart wins on both sides. Same thing with Target. Same thing with these other chain stores. These other stores that are making money in this day and age because they pay their workers like crap. Those workers either take on another job, take on a side gig, or whatever have you to make ends meet. So I find it a little hard that when you see something of the price consumer index and they try to sit there and say, well, this is what happens and this is what we have to do to survive. Well, that's not true. Because again, it's always been greed, and you're exactly right. It's cruel greed. It's greed. It is greed. It is capitalism. Greed. It is capitalistic greed at its highest, is what it is. And again, the only way that we're going to get out of this rut that we're in is that people have to be paid, because our economy is built on spending. When consumers spend, the economy is great. When consumers don't spend, the economy comes to a slow halt. And now that we still have minimum wage at $7.25 an hour, and depending on your state, you could be making $7.25 an hour or minimum wage. You could be making 15 and up. It's still poverty wages, because again, minimum wage isn't what it used to be. And I hear a lot of people say this all the time. Well, what about those fast food workers? Fast food workers should not be making more than me flipping burgers. Your anger is directed at the wrong person, because say, for instance, President Biden decides that tomorrow, bump it all, I'm going to raise the minimum wage $27 an hour. Everybody in the fast food industry is going to rejoice. $27 an hour puts them in a bracket to where they can finally afford things, which means that they will spend, which means the economy improves in that area, which overall improves the country. But people will sit there and say the same thing all the time. Well, how could you be flipping burgers and be making $20 an hour? Well, we have to get this mindset that a job that at one point in time you thought was for teenagers, grown people are working for it. At the same time, there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, everybody's doing a job in this day and age. You should be making $20. You should be making $27 an hour. Realistically, you should be making $30 an hour. You should be. That's our economy. That is our state in working. Everything has gone up by your paycheck. I can't be the only individual that's heard that multiple times throughout his life. Everything goes up by your paycheck. But again, imagine if your paycheck matched what you're putting out there. It would be completely different. we wouldn't have this recession that we're in. That is all I'm saying. But speaking of things that need to be said, Giuliani's in court again because, well, you got to remember a long time ago that he talked about 2 black Georgia poll workers saying that they were trying to throw the election, and then he got sued for defamation and he has to pay those people out. Well, what we're about to hear right now is a man that's going to be crying about how much money he's about to lose.
Now, Rudy Giuliani back in court in a multi-million-dollar defamation lawsuit from 2 former Georgia election workers after he falsely accused them of manipulating ballots in the 2020 presidential race. Now, the judge blasting Giuliani today for remarks that he made to our Terry Moran just outside the courthouse last night. I want to show you that exchange between Terry and the former Trump attorney. Take a listen.
Do you regret what you did to Ruby Freeman?
Of course I don't regret it. I told the truth. They were engaged in changing votes.
There's no proof of that.
Oh, you're damn right there is. Stay tuned.
Now, the judge today telling Giuliani that his remarks, quote, could support another defamation claim. Now, one of those election workers, Shay Moss, delivering a very emotional testimony earlier today, describing how she says her professional life and mental health deteriorated under the weight of this racially charged threats that she received in response to Giuliani's false claims. Moss and her mother, Ruby Freeman, are asking for up to $43 million in damages, and Giuliani has already been found liable for defaming them. Now, he has said that while he does not contest his statements about them were false, he claims they were protected under the Constitution. So for more on this, I want to bring in our ABC News contributor and professor at the University of Baltimore School of Law, Kim Whaley. Kim, thanks for being with us. And those are some pretty strong words there from the judge on the case today. Could Giuliani now set himself up for more legal trouble if he keeps pushing these claims?
Right. So the judge is saying, listen, you're continuing the defamation. And for him to stand out there and say it was true undermines a stipulation he filed and signed in July, admitting to all the underlying conduct and saying, listen, I'm just going to defend on damages. And as you indicated, there's a threshold question of First Amendment that will fail. And this judge is not playing around. He needs to take this seriously.
And what about these emotional testimonies here from this election worker? They're talking themselves. They're telling the jurors about the impact that they had. And they're even playing some of these tapes, these threats that they received. So how do you think that will play in how much money Giuliani ends up having to pay in damages?
Well, there are a number of components here to damages. There's damages flowing from their impact on their work. So that could actually be measured by wages. But also there's emotional damages and punitive damages. Those are the big ticket items, the punitive piece. And for these jurors to watch these women in anguish talk about the trauma that they still endure, their families have endured, and the racial overtones, I encourage everyone to take a look at their testimony. It's really shocking that not only Giuliani tolerated this and pushed this, but so did the former president of the United States, Donald Trump. Both of them made these false claims, and these women are still suffering. It's going to be a big verdict is my what I anticipate here.
And I would not be mad. I would sit there and say, clean his ass out. Of course, the 2 poll workers are seeking $43 million in damages. I'm gonna be honest, if I'm on the jury, I'm awarding more. Because again, Giuliani, for all those that don't know, accused these 2 women that they showed of basically throwing the election in Georgia. They did it for the longest time. They sat there, not just Giuliani, Fox News, they blasted these women right here. They couldn't stop talking about those 2 women nonstop for several months. They gave their names. They tried to sit there and say that they were sleeper agents. They tried to sit there and say that they were plants. They try to sit there and say that they knew that they could throw the election. They try to sit there and say election security is because of them. Every single nasty lie they could throw, Fox News, Newsmax, along with Giuliani, along with Dorito, all did it. Now, here's the thing. With these 2 women, Miss Shay Moss and Miss Ruby Freeman, you guys got to understand something. You're a black election poll worker working in a state where a national news network made their point in life to run your story 24/7. to run your name, to run your reputation, to basically throw dirt on you. And at the same time, the idiots that watch Fox News, Lord knows what they actually did in the state of Georgia. Like I said, Miss Moss and Miss Freeman had death threats. Not only to them, to their families. They had to leave the state. They had to go into hiding for their own safety. Now imagine several individuals caused your life to be uprooted and changed for the worst, living in fear. Only for that to actually come back in court and say, yeah, he's guilty of that. Defamation. He's guilty of defamation of character. He is liable for damages. And the fact that in front of cameras, he's going to sit there and say, I'm not wrong about what I said, even though he is. I mean, if Giuliani is a lawyer, I guess he is a former lawyer, former mayor of New York. But if that's his lawyering skills, I wouldn't use him to defend my dog, really. And yes, he is still continuing defamation of character. But like I said, ladies, if I were y'all, take his ass to the cleaners and then some. The only way you hurt men like that is on the bottom line. And Giuliani may be rich, but he's not on the line. He's not along the lines of Dorito, where Dorito can still fleece his flock. Giuliani's limited. But if I was those ladies, clean his ass out. What'd you guys say? No evidence, just believe me. He's loyal to a fall of pride. Won't let him admit when he was wrong. He doesn't want to, because he it's individuals like that remind me of why Trump is popular. Trump is every white man's fantasy to do whatever you want without recourse and without consequence. And because of who he is, and I keep saying this all the time, Trump has not gotten away with anything, because those chickens are coming home to roost, and they're all going to come at the same time. The one thing I'll say about karma, that bitch ain't never late. But when she hits, she hits. But again, if I was those ladies, clean Giuliani's ass out. That's all I'm saying. So other news before we get on to the other news segments we need to get to, guys, because again, before we get to the president and the next mistake that he's already made, newly House Speaker Mike Johnson decides that, yes, we are going to move forward with a Biden impeachment inquiry. Notice what I just said. A Biden impeachment inquiry. Let the video explain.
Where we lead on this impeachment investigation. But aren't there going to be a lot of conservatives in your party, because this has been drummed up for so long? We're going to do impeachment. We're looking at these tax records. We're looking at the Hunter Biden stuff here, that if you guys don't call an impeachment vote in the next few months, they're going to say, wait a minute, that's it. I mean, haven't you put them over the barrel a little bit if you, in fact, do not have a vote to impeach the president of the United States in a couple of months?
Chad, we're following the Constitution, and I've made this very clear. Remember, my background is constitutional law. I served on an impeachment defense team twice under President Trump. We developed, unfortunately, Elisa and I, an expertise in this area. This is not something they really covered in law school. What you know about impeachment, if you look at the Constitution, is it's a heavy authority that's given to the House, specifically to the House. That's where the power lies. And next to the declaration of war, you've all heard me say many times, I think it may be the heaviest power that we have. It's very, very serious business. It has to be conducted in that way. The impeachment inquiry is necessary now, as Whip Emmer just explained, because we've come to this impasse where following the facts where they lead is hitting a stone wall, because the White House is impeding that investigation now. They're not allowing witnesses to come forward and thousands of pages of documents. So we have no choice. To fulfill our constitutional responsibility, we have to take the next step. We're not making a political decision. It's not. It's a legal decision. So people have feelings about it one way or the other. We can't prejudge the outcome. The Constitution does not permit us to do so. We have to follow the truth where it takes us, and that is exactly what we're going to do. And I'll note too, I know that people are frustrated sometimes with the time that's being invested in this, but this is the way the founders anticipated that something like this would go. There shouldn't be any such thing as a snap impeachment, a sham impeachment like the Democrats did against President Trump. This is the opposite of that. And that's why people are getting restless, because they want things to happen quickly. If you follow the Constitution and you do the right thing, you cannot rush it. You have to follow the facts. So,
but you don't think there's an expectation by the base that you guys are going? Again, I know all these predicates and caveats here. There's not an expectation that your side is going to impeach the
Check-
president because that's what they were elected in the majority.
People have a lot of opinions and a lot of expectations on all sides. What we are bound to do because of our oath to the Constitution is to follow it, and that's what we're going to do. Next question. Yeah.
And just to follow up on that, thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you get into the spring and decide not to impeach the president based on the inquiry, you would be comfortable with that decision, essentially absolving him months before a presidential election?
We're not going to prejudge the outcome of this. We can't, because again, it's not a political calculation. We're following the law, and we are the rule of law team, and I'm going to hold to that. That's my commitment. Mr. Speaker.
Okay, so I'm going to cut it right there because let me call this what this is. Mr. Speaker, so basically, what are we inquiring about with President Biden? Oh, well, we're looking into that. Wait, so what is it that you're impeaching the president for? Well, we're looking into that. We're following the Constitution. Okay, so nothing? Well, I wouldn't say nothing. We're going to follow it. Follow what? See, this is the part I'm getting at, guys. That entire song and dance that you saw from House Speaker Mike Johnson was a load of crap. What he's basically saying is that, yes, because of the way he got his job, keep in mind, this is exactly the details of how House Speaker Mike Johnson got his job. Keep in mind, Speaker McCarthy, Mr. 15 times I was going to be speaker, had a problem a few months back. Speaker then McCarthy had a choice. Either he could side with the president in getting a budget to keep Congress running, or he could side with the Republicans to move forward with an impeachment inquiry. He sided with Biden. This led to basically the Republicans saying a vote of no confidence, removing House Speaker, and then we decided to play Who Wants to Be House Speaker of Idiots, which 4 or 5 idiots did get nominated, didn't make it, did get nominated, didn't make it. Finally, Mike Johnson comes up and says, well, he looks like the guy that you would trust to basically be racist to everybody. Let's vote him. And now he's in with the condition. He has to move forward with an impeachment inquiry. What's the impeachment for? No idea, because they don't have it. Because here's the thing. This impeachment inquiry was only because the Democrats moved forward with an impeachment twice on then President Dorito. But then again, when they moved forward with the impeachment, they had reasons. Collusion with Russia was one. They want to see that he had any collusion being a compromised president, which again, back then, Hillary Clinton called it before the election. Hillary Clinton said that Trump was a compromised individual, and she didn't miss. At the same time, they tried to impeach him again. Oh, what was the second time? That he abused his power. He abused his power from the seat of the president. He overstepped. And it's amazing how the Democrats had both those two things when they ran for impeachment on Trump twice and didn't need an entire 4 months to get there. Whereas now the Republicans are like saying, oh, well, you impeached our president, we're going to impeach yours. Marjorie Taylor Greene, that I almost called her something I can't repeat on here. That individual tried to file articles of impeachment against Biden. Didn't work. She couldn't get any traction. So now House Speaker Mike Johnson is running into the same problem. How do I get traction on this to where now the Republicans are in an impasse? You either have to wait to get enough evidence to pull forward, and even if you do, it'll basically be a deadlock, because just similar to the Republicans, because Republicans here's the reason why. Republicans, when president was Trump, couldn't afford to take an L. They won't. And I keep saying this all the time. Whenever Republicans in trouble and it's dealing in politics, neither the House or the Senate will not allow one of their own to fall on the sword. They will turn around and block it every which way they go, unless it's George Santos, which at that point you were screwed. But when it comes to Trump, the Republican Party saved him not once but twice. And now, because the Republicans have the majority in the House, they're trying to move forward and sit there and say, well, we're going after Biden. Well, what do you have against Biden? Trust me, bro. That's your source. Your source is trust me, bro. We have something. We have to find it first, but we have something. but we're going to do it. This just goes to show you, that's what I keep telling you guys. I cannot understand how people can vote conservative. These people are the people you vote in here. These people were the ones talking about curbing spending. These people are the ones that were talking about giving more power to the people, removing the government from so many things. And I say this all the time on this show. I have yet to be proven wrong. Name me one positive thing that this Congress has done since they've been in. I'm sorry, not this Congress. Name one positive thing this GOP has done since they've been in power in the House. One positive that has impacted the lives of Americans in a positive way that bring change. I dare you to try to find something the GOP pushed through that was allowed. You'll be hard pressed, and and frustrated. I'll tell you that much. But but again, that's been their agenda. They want to impeach the president. They want to kick back in the tax cuts that Trump had in there for rich people and corporations. They want to basically make America great again because, in their minds, it's still 1960s. But that's the deal that House Speaker Mike Johnson has made. Let's see what happens between here and March. It should be interesting. But like I said, speaking of George Santos, guys, I know we did report last week that his ass was given the heave-ho, but the man is still around, right? Why is this man still around? A little bit of an issue of identity theft.
Former Congressman George Santos is in talks with federal prosecutors to resolve his pending fraud case. The New York Republican, who was expelled from Congress this month, faces multiple charges of wire fraud, identity theft, and also making false statements. Santos is due in court today for a status conference. Now, without a plea deal, his trial is expected to go next September.
Reminder.
Now, here's me. If your ass was found guilty of identity theft, of fraud, and multiple times of misuse of money, your ass would be in jail. The normal America would be in jail. George Santos is about to do a plea deal. Now, whether or not he gets that plea deal, I can only imagine what is that plea deal for? Because usually those types of charges, easy prison sentence. But we'll see. Like I said before, I'm just curious to see why George Santos is getting a plea deal when the man is guilty, dead to rights. But like I said, getting off the GOP for a second, we got to get on the Democrats. Why? Because President Biden did something today that, yesterday, I still scratch my head about. And yes, if you're Ukraine, you're very happy.
Ukraine and the protracted fight for new American military funding, tens of billions of dollars, almost 2 years since the Russian invasion. That battle for money brought Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, to Congress and the White House today for a personal appeal. Zelensky facing continued skepticism from some congressional Republicans, while President Biden argued that blocking more aid for Ukraine will only play into Russia's hands. Zelensky dismissing suggestions that Ukraine might be willing to give up territory that's now occupied by Russia. With Congress divided on more funding, it was a tough mission today for Zelensky. It's where we begin tonight with senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez.
Tonight, with the war raging and a brutal winter fast approaching, Ukrainian President Zelensky is making an urgent plea to Congress and President Biden.
In Ukraine, we are fighting for our country and freedom.
The U.S. has already sent $111 billion in military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine since Russia's invasion began, but that money's running out. The Biden administration has been urging Congress to approve a new $106 billion package that includes roughly $60 billion for Ukraine, as well as support for Israel and money to strengthen the U.S.-Mexico border.
Putin is banking on the United States failing to deliver for Ukraine. We must prove him wrong.
Zelensky's hastily planned U.S. trip is a dramatic difference from his first wartime visit last year, where he arrived to a hero's welcome. Today, Zelensky met with lawmakers behind closed doors. Skeptical Republicans want to overhaul immigration policies at the U.S. southern border before they sign off on any new money for Ukraine.
Our first condition on any national security supplemental spending package is about our own national security first. The border is an absolute catastrophe.
And this is because of the policies of this White House and this administration.
The House Speaker also saying he wants an accounting of U.S. money already sent to Ukraine and that Zelensky has not provided a clear strategy to win. The war has largely become a stalemate. In recent months, Ukraine taking back no major Russian-held territory as its latest counteroffensive mostly fizzled. But the White House, in newly declassified intelligence, says the Russian military has suffered more than 13,000 casualties since October. Meanwhile, Zelensky with a sharp rebuke for some Republicans calling for peace talks and suggesting Ukraine give up territory.
That's insane, to be honest. I have a question to these people if they are ready to give up their children to terrorists. I think no.
And Gabe, it seemed clear that Zelensky is looking for quick action here. When will Congress take all this on?
Lester, it's looking increasingly unlikely that a deal gets done this week before lawmakers head home for the holidays. These talks could drag on into January, something the Biden administration says could critically hamper the war effort.
Okay. So again, guys, okay, let's all right. Oh, hey, Kara, because that would open the door for the rest of the politicians to be caught up on charges. True. I mean, but why not? Because if whatever Santos is going to say, it's got to be earth-shattering. Yeah, I'm guessing. But as you guys saw, President Biden is wanting to announce another $200 million to aid Ukraine. Now, this is already on top of I think we're a little over $1 billion now. I want to say if my math is right, we're a little over $1 billion in aid to Ukraine. And here's the thing that I've always bothered me. Two things. One, Republicans can't really talk about Ukraine when there's another country in another part of the world that you can't say because Zuckerberg and his robots will sit there and say that you're inciting riots. But currently in the country right now, over yonder, two countries warring with each other. At the same time, one of those countries that starts with an I that Republicans love. Those Christian Republicans love it so much because in the country that starts with an I, there's a holy city, if you will, that they must defend. And yet, when it comes to defending said holy city, money is no object. But it's amazing that those same people will defend that country that starts with an I, will defend it no problem. But Ukraine is an issue because their argument is, well, our southern borders need to be taken care of. Here's the thing about immigration. Democrats would love to fix it. Republicans want to keep it broke. You know what it is? It's always going to be their stigma. It's going to be their albatross. And it's just like the VA. If you ever notice that the Department of Veteran Affairs is the same thing. It can easily be fixed, but they won't, because to them it's a complaining post. Oh, well, our southern borders, you have people coming over our borders on a daily basis. What are we going to do about them? They're sitting there killers, they're rapists, they're worse their own kind. Where have you heard this before? Because immigration, when it comes from other countries, like Russia, for example, or that country that starts with an I, nobody bats an eye. But if it comes from that country that starts with a P, or if it comes from that country that starts with a G, issues. Because again, they're selected, and then there's ones that are unfavorables. But what kills me about this is our immigration problem can be easily solved. Instead of sending troops, weapons, and use of force to these areas, how are we not increasing our Department of Immigration? Why are we not increasing immigration judges, lawyers, court clerks, things of that nature? Why are we not increasing those things? Oh, right, because we're giving money to wars. Not only that, we're actually taking money away. Which again, this is why I say Biden. I don't get President Biden sometimes. You will give money to wars, no problem. And then it is amazing to me how the GOP says, we want an accounting of all this money that's being used. Meanwhile, those the Pentagon are like, you ain't talking to us. Because, the Pentagon has failed every audit since they've been given money. And oh yes, the Pentagon gets an increase in the defense budget every time. The one thing in America, the one thing in the congressional budget that's never been decreased, is our spending, our defense spending. It's been increased. But the Pentagon cannot account for a single cent of that money. And we're talking about failed audits since the 50s. So hey, keep that streak going. But the reason why I bring this up is because if Biden can turn around and make that possible for Ukraine to now get well over $1 billion in aid from the U.S., I want Biden to explain this. How do you explain that by next year, unless something is done, the WIC program, the one that handles SNAP and food assistance for Americans who need it for their families, things of that nature, by 2024, it could be short by about $1 billion. And this is from the Center for Budget and Policy Forecast. What they're basically saying is that we have more people on food stamps and assistance now than we ever have in the last 6 years. That being said, it has strained resources considerably. And keep in mind, guys, what I just said about the congressional budget, that from Health and Human Services, their budget has been slashed. Transportation has been slashed. Education has been slashed. Defense spending increased. So when I say about Health and Human Services, WIC falls under that. SNAP benefits fall under that. And you got to imagine that now they're being told to do more with less. And you have people that are dependent upon this, dependent upon SNAP, dependent upon WIC, to basically make sure they have food. Because again, this is all one big storm, perfect storm, if you will. If minimum wage is down, but the cost has gone up at the same time, you got to figure out how to keep a roof over your head, food on your plate, and if you have kids, to make sure they're clothed, to make sure they have a place to sleep, to make sure if their school has any if they have any school fees, lunches, things of that nature. You have to make sure all those needs are met. And that's freaking crazy to do so in this economy. But yet, unless I think to myself, Netanyahu, who is from that country that starts with an I, he goes to Congress every year. Congress gives money to that country that starts with an I. They give them foreign aid every year. We just started now giving funds to Ukraine 2 years ago. Amazing, isn't it? 2 years we've been doing this. But it is amazing to me that when it comes to Americans, that our Congress seems to be lacking, except around election time. Now, if I was a person, I'm going to be honest with you guys, if I was a voter and I ever got the chance to interview or to speak with said people, the first thing I'm asking is, what have you done, what have you done lately for the American people? Americans are struggling making ends meet. Americans are struggling to pay bills, put gas in the car, to pay mortgages, to get a mortgage, to get a car, to get a loan, to maintain a job. What have you done for minimum wage? What have you done for preventive care for women? What have you done outside of giving foreign countries more money than you gave your own country? Because you're going to have a hard time. And I've said this with Biden. Biden's already going to have a hard time with minority voters. He really, truly is. But also at the same time, you're going to have a hard time convincing overall American citizens that when they see foreign money going to foreign aid that really could go helping toward their benefits, you're going to have a hard time convincing them that you're doing this for them, especially around election time. But I digress. Move right along, guys. I wanted to cover this story as well because Moms for Liberty. Ooh, Moms for Liberty. I tell you the truth. If you ever seen a whole bunch of Karens that just don't like Harry Potter, just say so, or they think 50 Shades of Grey is going to be read by a sixth grader just out of fear that the sixth grader finds in a library, this group. Well, two things have happened. One, this happened in Florida, and two, this school board asked one of the former co-founders of Moms for Liberty to resign her post. I did not see this coming.
The Sarasota School Board is officially asking board member Bridget Ziegler to voluntarily step down.
Well, I am disappointed. As people may know, I serve on another public board, and this issue did not come up, and we were able to forge ahead with the business of the board.
The school board cannot force Ziegler out. Only the governor can do that. Board member Tom Edwards says he's not interested in all the drama.
It is the distraction du jour in a long list of distractions that has kept the board drama focused instead of student-centric focus.
It comes following rape accusations against her husband, GOP Chairman Christian Ziegler, surfaced last week, and Bridget's own admission to a three-way affair with the accuser.
LGBT children and LGBT families have been under attack by the state legislature, an attack pushed forward by Ms. Ziegler.
Ziegler has been on the board since 2014. She is also a co-founder of the conservative Moms for Liberty group, backing Governor Ron DeSantis' law dubbed as Don't Say Gay. She has been outspoken on conservative issues.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, Bridget Ziegler's got to go.
Outside the school board chambers, hundreds gathered calling for Ziegler to apologize and resign.
She has turned this school board into a circus. The hypocrisy and the harm must end now.
While critics have called Ziegler hypocritical, there were a few defending and supporting her.
She's one person against the whole room. And shame on you, anybody here that comes and talks about a mother of 3 children.
That last guy sounded a little bit British, but I'll give him that. So yes, who knew in Florida that we actually may see someone get removed? So the whole thing about it is, the woman that they talked about was the wife of a Republican chairman who was accused of sexual battery, which is rape and sexual battery. But it seems the accuser, her and her husband, were a throuple, which again, this comes from Moms for Liberty. Remember, the same Moms for Liberty that's against LGBTQ plus people, the same Moms for Liberty that always speaks about, we want to make sure that kids aren't exposed to drag queens and things of that nature. The party of family values, I will say it once, I will say it again. Whenever it's the party of family values, it's either scandal, it's either LGBTQ plus, or my personal favorite, the trifecta, a tryst, which involves all 3. Because yes, she should resign, because that makes her a hypocrite. These Moms for Liberty people are the sole reason why CRT laws got put in place for no reason. These are the same group of people that push for certain books that were done by authors of color and of LGBTQ plus community people. They're the same ones that push for those books to be removed. They're the same ones that push for curriculums to be reviewed by parents that public teachers were teaching kids. So I don't feel bad for her at all. But like they said, unfortunately, she can only be removed by the chairman. So we'll see where it goes from there. But speaking of things that require special counsel, I don't know how I can phrase this, because when I first saw this, I was a little concerned. So you remember Trump and his issues with the documents that he swore up and down he could take to Mar-a-Lago, but he really couldn't, refused to give them back, that the FBI decided to go down and get said documents and then decided to bring a case against him, to which Trump sat there and said, well, we want a special counsel, but we don't trust you guys. So when special counsel came in and they turned around and said, yeah, Trump, you're effing guilty. And Trump was like, I don't like you either. Well, that special counsel is asking, and this might be interesting. This special counsel is asking the Supreme Court for an immediate decision on whether or not the former disgraced president, failed president, can hold any type of immunity.
Special counsel Jack Smith asking the Supreme Court to decide if Donald Trump is immune from prosecution in the election interference case, as our new poll finds the former president surging in Iowa. Here's Priscilla Thompson.
Tonight, special counsel Jack Smith asking the Supreme Court to decide if former President Trump is immune from prosecution for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election because he committed the alleged crimes while in office. The High Court agreeing to consider whether to hear the case on an expedited basis. Trump tonight calling the case completely politically motivated. 2024.
Okay.
Who's your candidate?
Trump. Only Trump.
Only Trump.
No other option.
Insurance agent Ken Mason says Trump's legal woes won't matter on election night. Even with all those legal challenges, you believe a majority of the country will vote for former President Trump?
I will, because of his accomplishments.
Mason is part of the 51% of likely Iowa caucus goers who say Trump is their top pick, up 8 points from October, according to a new NBC News Des Moines Register Mediacom poll. It's the largest lead ever in this poll, this close to a competitive Republican caucus. Trump's closest rivals, Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, are both trailing him by more than 30 points. Their numbers have moved little in the past month, even with DeSantis spending considerable time and money here.
I just keep hoping those polls are wrong.
Amanda Wallace hopes the case against Trump will disqualify him. The 55-year-old preschool teacher says she's backing DeSantis.
Groceries are just so much more expensive. Gas, just everything is so much more expensive.
How excited are you to caucus for DeSantis?
I don't know if I'd say excited, but I'm willing to. I'm not real excited to go all in for anybody.
That lack of enthusiasm also reflected in the poll. 70% of Trump supporters have made up their minds, more than double the Haley and DeSantis supporters saying the same.
He's a gift from God to answer many people's prayers.
Priscilla Thompson, NBC.
Okay. Wow. I apologize profusely. Because I know you guys watch that too. I apologize profusely. I really do. But we got to talk about it. So special counsel has sat there and asked, because what they're trying to do is basically trying to make sure that if they do move forward in the interference election case, that Trump can be prosecuted. Of course, back then, the DOJ had an opinion. This opinion was not law. Let me point this out. The opinion was not law, which means that, yes, at the time when William Barr was the AG, they could have moved forward with indicting the president if he so choose. It was their opinion that a sitting president cannot be indicted. I know it's bullshit because it basically says he's above the law, which certainly he is not. That also being said, the special counsel that's over the election interference case wanted to make sure. And I'll give them to this. Because the first time I read that, I was like, wait, what are we doing? This is why I said say read it all the way through. What actually winds up happening is that the special counsel is asking the Supreme Court, hey, can Donald Trump basically get immunity from this? If he can't, cool, full steam ahead, which means that he is liable, and if convicted, he will be disqualified. It's a federal charge. No presidential candidate can have a federal charge against them and run for office. It would disqualify him as president. Although technically the 14th Amendment would disqualify him as president because he basically decided to lead a riot on January 6th. But I digress. So what that basically means is they're basically putting this in the hands of the conservative Supreme Court, which makes me nervous. Guys, I cannot stress this enough. It makes me nervous. To put this in the hands of the Supreme Court, it makes me nervous, especially a conservative-leaning Supreme Court. The same Supreme Court that shot down Roe versus Wade, the same Supreme Court that gutted a piece of affirmative action because some Chinese Americans felt that they were discriminated getting into Harvard because of their race. Figure that one out. So now that very same group may be asked to look into this case and take it on and make a decision, and their decision could either protect Trump or condemn him. Now, as you're sitting there laughing, I know somebody will get a kick out of that, but the other part of it is what I wanted to get to. The other part of this, and I want to bring that graphic up one more time. This is what should concern people. Now, keep in mind, we have had we're about to be on our fourth Republican debate. We've had 3. And if you paid attention, Trump has not been at any of them because he sat there and he says this all the time. Why do I need to go to the debate? I'm leading in the polls. There's the poll right there as they get to the Iowa caucus, which is the next poll that's coming up. So this is the before. As you guys can see, this idiot is up 51%. Trump 2.0, known as Ron DeSantis, is at 19%. Nikki Haley, that's not her real name, is behind at 16%. Governor Christie and Vivek Ramaswamy don't even hit the scale. But again, Trump is basically beating DeSantis and Haley if they were combined and still beat them by landslides. Now, as you guys have also seen, you've seen folks that have came out for Trump and swear he's the second coming of Christ. Oh, well, he's done so much. And I say this all the time because I see these people. I have to ask this question all the time. What has Trump done for you that has you believing that he's the second coming of Christ? I have to ask that question. I really do. Just because he's done nothing. If nothing except quadruple a national debt in a shortest amount of time, but has done it outside the last 3 Republican administrations combined. That is a feat in itself. And then you have the woman saying, well, I'm going to vote for Ron DeSantis. Governor Ron DeSantis, who has shown he can't debate, whether it's Gavin Newsom or Nikki Haley. Gavin Newsom thoroughly whooped his ass in the debate that he had. And he couldn't debate Nikki Haley. And yet Trump 2.0 is your next individual. And let's get on Nikki Haley. She's a failed former ambassador, failed governor. I'm like, failed governor of South Carolina. And you're going to sit there and back her? Just like I said about Tim Scott. Just like I said about America's creepiest Christian, Mike Pence, and America's Uncle Tom, Tim Scott. An old Christian white male was not, an old creepy Christian was not going to be the Republican candidate. A black man over a party that does not consider him to be equal is not going to be the candidate. And slowly but surely, Nikki Haley, a woman, is not going to be the presidential candidate for the GOP. Ron DeSantis is losing an uphill battle because again, he was big shit when he was in Florida. It's easy when you're the governor of Florida. It's easy to sit there and take on Disney and find out that Disney's got more money than you. When you sat there and introduced a Don't Say Gay bill, which made LGBTQ individuals and members fear for their lives. And some teachers had to quit their jobs because they couldn't talk about it from K through 12. You gutted African American AP history because you didn't like the way it made you feel because it told the truth about white folks. You did all this in your state, and now you want to be president, and you're suddenly realizing people don't like you. Hence, what's your only option? The Golden Dorito, who is under so many indictments, who is facing multiple cases. One case he already lost in a rape case, in a sexual assault case. He lost that case. He's bound to lose his Manhattan property case. He's bound to lose the election fraud case. He is bound to lose the FBI case. 3 of those cases are federal, which means that if he loses that case and is found guilty, kiss running for president goodbye. But as of right now, he's the smartest man out there. He is basically qualified for 3 presidential debates, and is still and has yet to win to none of them. And yet his people believe him. This is why I keep saying, guys, why you need to be active, why you need to be aware, why you need to be involved. Because an old senile white man like Trump has more people like that guy out there and ready to go vote for him. I can't stress this out enough. Unless you want a repeat of 2016, I don't know what else to tell you. I know I don't want a repeat of 2016 where they had to sit there and say, and the 45th president of the United States, Donald J. Trump. I cringed when I heard that in 2016. I don't want to hear that in 2024. That's all I'm saying. I'd rather not hear it. I really don't want to hear it. But again, we all have to be active or history going to repeat itself. Again, I digress. But the last word I got to get to you guys before we get to our feel good segment. Again, I cannot talk. Here's one, there's a few banks that I'll never go to. Chase being one of them, the other one, Wells Fargo. Now, if you've been following my podcast, What you guys say? Oh, delusional. Yeah, completely so. But if you've been following my podcast, guys, you know I have a bone to pick with Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo has been caught many times by the FDIC and the SEC for fraudulent credit cards in people's names, identity theft, overcharging, blocking mortgage prices. Every time this company gets involved, they pay a fine, the CEO leaves, and it's back to business. Well, not surprised, Wells Fargo is back in the limelight again. Why? Because they're getting caught with other banks over mortgage pricing discrimination. Allow me to explain. Now, for those that get mortgages, guys, there's this practice that they call. I forgot what the practice. Give me 1 second here. The practice is called pricing disparity. Now, what they usually do is that this actual pricing disparity is basically an exception that can allow you to lower the APR on home loans, usually between 25 and 75 points. Now, the reason why this is an accepted practice. Let me point this out because I had to do a little bit of research on this myself. But this practice is allowed, and the problem with this practice is that it's allowed, but Wells Fargo has been doing it more for non-people of color and men, which meant that people of color, such as myself, and women do not get the same amount of fair use of the pricing exception on their homes, which means Wells Fargo could possibly be telling their minority and female customers, you may be paying more on home loans than white men. And again, they received an official notice from the consumer from the CFPB, calling usually it's called a MRA or matter requiring attention, which means that there's going to be an investigation, which again is probably going to be another fine, which is probably going to lead to another CEO, being booted from Wells Fargo again. And I cannot stress this enough. Banks are the next ones up that need to be regulated heavily. Why? Because stuff like this. If I did identity theft, I'm in jail. If I forged somebody's signatures or took their identity or took their funds or did some heinous shit as a bank, not as a bank, but as an individual, I'm in jail. No question. Fast, do not pass go, do not collect $200 straight to jail. But as a bank, they're fine. Nobody goes to jail. And Wells Fargo is still allowed to operate like nothing happened. And this is the thing that I don't understand. But banks have done a good job of lobbying Congress. Banks have done such a good job of lobbying Congress that they've insulated themselves from jail time. If this was Sweden, New Zealand, or any other country in the world, those bankers would be in jail. But here, slap on the wrist, pay a fine. And that bank is still allowed to operate like nothing happened. And that right there is a problem, a big problem. Because if banks are allowed to basically get away with murder, then why are we? I'm sorry, I'm gonna put it this way: if banks are allowed to get away with murder, then identity theft might as well be a misdemeanor instead of a felony. Because if banks can get away with it, why do we punish individuals? But again, another reason why I hate Wells Fargo. But we're gonna move on to our feel good segment, guys, because you don't have the Frack guy here. We cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes make use of faith in humanity. But hey, it is Wednesday, hump day. Tomorrow is Friday, which is Thursday. We will leave you guys out with some good vibrations. Hopefully, the next story will do that because again, it's a heartwarming story about a son telling his father that he got on scholarship, but he does it in such a way that it takes about a second for the dad to catch on. But when he catches on, man, he's extremely proud of his son. Check it out.
You might as well buy some TSU shirts to rock your game. Not Space Invader.
I like Space Invader. That's what we call you, bro.
I know, but now you got a reason to rep TSU. Because I'm on scholarship.
Bro, stop playing.
No, they gave it to me yesterday.
They gave it to me yesterday. Yes, sir. That's what I'm talking about, man. Oh my God. God. They gave it to me yesterday. Wow, bro. Wow, man.
And again, that's great. Congratulations to that young man getting a scholarship to play at TSU. I can't knock it. It's great. Like I said, me being a dad, I got a while. I got a while before either of my sons can reach that level. I mean, if they decide they want to play sports, if they decide they want to do academics, or if they decide they want to go in a different route for college, I'm still gonna have my proud dad moment. But you can't knock it when your son plays football, comes up to you and tells you that he got a scholarship. So again, good things, good tidings, can't knock it. That being said, that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. I do want to thank you all who watched, who liked, that commented. Let people know I was live. I cannot say thank you enough from the bottom of my heart. I certainly appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here. I do want to shout out first buddy of mine, Vaughn, at Big BZA Dot. You can definitely catch him, Big BZA Dot on social media, as he does have a music channel on YouTube. If you need music for songs, if you need music for television shows, things of that nature, definitely check him out. Big BZA Dot on all social media. Also, guys, you can find me BlackBox447 on socials. I usually do reviews on almost everything, as well as my other podcast, Get Bit, which will be this Friday, which we cover video games of the week and things of that nature. But of course, with that, the link at the bottom, if you basically I'll make that just a little bit bigger for you guys to see. If you copy and paste that link in your browser, we'll take you to my link tree. That's YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts. And my podcast can be found wherever podcasts can be seen or heard. So definitely check that out. The last thing I got to promote, guys, because again, I am just a small cog in the wheel, along with others who we like to call this a movement, a coalition, if you will. You guys have heard of Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu. You probably don't like the fact that, your content comes and it goes. You probably don't like the fact of price increases, because let's be honest, they are the new cable now. So you're getting a little dismayed, a little disenfranchised, bamboozled, run up, if you will. Well, there's this actual new Netflix, I call it the next Netflix. Well, I like to call it as Blackflix. I am talking about BlurredStation.com. BlurredStation is basically, guys, it is the next coming. It is basically the next media for people of color and for blurs and for nerds, because we are covering everything, guys. We are covering comics. We are covering television. We are covering movies. We're covering animation. We are going the whole bat, and you yourself can go out there and enjoy this content at BlurredStation.com, and you do so by hitting the Join Now button. Now, if you guys will do me a favor, if you want to join Blurred Station and watch this stuff, if you do me a favor, go to Join Now and then go to the Blurred's Eye View Affinity membership. And basically anybody there, the Affinity Influence partner, if you'll just do me a favor there, whether it's Chris Fury, Roomful of Birds, will be watching Black Spartan, Safari TV, David Montel, Geek by Heart. You can select any one of those and then select the Affinity membership, where you're paying $10.99 a month. Yes, $10.99 a month. That is all you're paying. You can still get Blurred Station and still have food to eat. I'm not any other places you can say that, but I'm just saying you can say it about Blurred Station, and you can enjoy us. Now, the wonderful thing about Blurred Station is, with this Affinity membership, because you ever wonder if you could own a piece of Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon, you can do that with Blurred Station. After 36 months of $10.99, you have the ability to own stock in Blurred Station. Unlike Amazon, Hulu, and every other place where you have to go through Fidelity or E-Trade and pay an assload amount of money to get a share of something, you can do that just paying $10.99 a month for 36 months. But definitely check out Blurred Station. If you do, select Blurred's Eye View as an Affinity partner, and anybody down there, including myself at Black Spartan, we would all love to have you. Like I said, support the movement. That's all it's always been about. And again, when I talk back the whole thing about supporting the movement, and wrapping this up, guys, get informed. The whole point of this podcast is to keep you guys informed. Hopefully what I've done is encourage. I want to encourage, I want to inspire you to get out there and get into the current events, get into the facts, get into not just politics, get into everything. Because unless we become active actors in this, unless we change the narrative, if you will, things will continue. And again, you can't complain if you do nothing, especially with this presidential election coming up. I know from the Democratic side, there's really not a lot of competition with Biden. It looks like he will wind up probably being the Democratic nominee again. But on the Republican side, again, if there is a chance, there's a chance that Trump may actually make it again. And that's a scary ass thought. But even more so, with the next presidential election coming up, do we really want a repeat of Trump 2016? I know I don't. And even the election after that is the midterms. We need to do something about the Senate and the House, not just from the federal level, but the local level. I know in my home state of Tennessee, I wish I could clear out the Tennessee legislature of Republicans because they've done nothing but damage the state. But I can't do it alone. Like I said, guys, get active. Know the candidates. Know what's going on in your city. Know the laws. Be active. And if you feel like you can run, there's plenty of places out there that'll show you how you can run for office in your city and state if you choose to do it. But simply put, guys, all I'm asking you to do is be active. But the last thing I'll say about How the Frack got here, guys, is all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information to allow you to make up your own mind. But we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do better as society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black woman as the National Cybersecurity Advisor. All freaking great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up but our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other as we get closer to that wonderful Christmas Eve. Again, be nicer, be kinder. Don't be a dick. Don't be a dick. As they usually say on other shows. But again, guys, take care of yourselves and each other. We'll all get through this.